Good morning, Dr. Oyeleye. It's a pleasure to have you on the program as usual.
Thanks for having me back. Thank you very much.
So today we're talking about something very interesting. We're talking about the myopia epidemic. Now, what is myopia and why are you saying there's an epidemic?
Okay, so let's use the simple language as we usually do. Myopia is what people call short-sightedness, but then essentially it is when your vision is better for near tasks than when you look in the distance. So if you notice that, for example, when you're trying to use your phone, when you're trying to read, that's okay. But when you look in the distance, you can't see things clearly, then those are the typical symptoms of myopia. It's in a group of what we call the refractive errors, whereby myopia is actually one of the most common types of refractive errors.
Why are you saying it's an epidemic?
Right. It's an epidemic because of the number in terms of figures we have worldwide. Using WHO figures, in 2010, we had about 28% of the world was myopic. And using WHO figures again, it's estimated that in 2050, half of the world will be myopic. So it's increasing. And something that actually came to light into the open last year was, or maybe 2 years ago during the COVID outbreak, was the fact that we're getting more and more cases of myopia. But as the program goes on, we'll explain how that fits into the myopic epidemic.
Wow. Now, myopia is short-sightedness, and everybody knows it. And a lot of people have it, including myself. So it's like something that people don't really think about because they think, what is short-sightedness? What's the big deal about it? A lot of people have it, they just put on glasses and then move on. But it is a bigger issue than that, isn't it? In our own environment, is it diagnosed in everybody that it needs to be diagnosed in? And what are the repercussions for people who don't get their diagnosis on time?
Okay, yes. Whilst we were talking, I just remembered, maybe I just slipped this in. We went to do some eye screening at a motor park somewhere in Lagos. And we found some of the commercial drivers were short-sighted. And we said, oh, this pair of glasses will help you see better and everything. And they refused. They said, if I wear glasses, nobody will come into my vehicle. So they refused completely to wear glasses, which would have helped them. And they were short-sighted. But a lot of people don't actually have that opportunity to get glasses, which could help. So going back to your question, or trying to explain things further, you can become myopic at virtually any age in childhood or sometimes as an adult, okay? Essentially, most people start developing myopia when they're in school, the primary school, going to secondary school, but sometimes later in life when they're university. I had mentioned the COVID epidemic, and essentially what we noted then, or what was noted then, was that a lot of children were doing a lot of their schoolwork. And after COVID, they noticed that a lot of them showed signs of myopia, i.e. they weren't seen very well in the distance. Now, there are two main causes of short-sightedness. One is a genetic cause, and the other is the environmental cause. Now, genetic factors, they don't really change very quickly. It's the environmental factors that may change quickly. And initially we thought, oh, because everybody is using computers and everybody is using telephones, that the problem was the gadgets affecting their eyes.
Yes.
And that was it was the assumption for quite some time. But later on, due to several multi-centered studies. They found out that the real problem was the reduced exposure to outdoor light. So we initially thought it was the fact that we are doing closed tasks all the time. But when they looked at everything, they said it may not be the fact that you're doing closed tasks, but the fact that we are not going outdoors as often as we should, or as often as people in our generation.
Yes.
Yes.
Wow,
yes. So that is the key thing being looked at now.
That is actually very, very interesting because, you know, as children, I remember they always sent us out to play. And I won't lie to you, I was one of those who didn't like going out to play. I like to stay in and read. I could not have helped I actually already have a genetic disposition, can't have helped matters at all. But what is very interesting is that the sun and being outside is actually such an overwhelming need for human beings. So if you look at the issues of vitamin D, if you look at so many things that we need to be outside for, and this COVID epidemic definitely has been a problem. And, you know, the children didn't even want to go outside in the first place. They were enjoying their computer games so much. Now, how do you get them out? And how do you let the parents know that it's absolutely essential for them to get out?
Yes, like it's probably going back to what you're probably going to say anyway, is that education, you know. I remember about 8-10 years ago when my children were in secondary school, I went to do a screening in a school. Now, I had the results with me, and I had the research details with me. I done some literature searches, and I found out that what was published was about 7 to 11% of children are myopic at a certain age. And I was getting about 30%, 35%. And it's not as if I was personally there and saw virtually all the children. I saw the test being done. So I knew they were reliable. I just couldn't imagine, why am I getting 4 times
the normal?
4 times what is normal? And I thought, oh, maybe because most people don't have their eyes tested until they have issues, you know. Then I started comparing public schools and private schools. And I found out that, look, even in the public schools, that's the government schools, they were more short-sighted than that was published. You know, so it's something that was, you know, but I didn't get to this fact that, you know, what the answers are now. Something that tickled me that, look, there's something going on, but I just, you know, moved on without actually trying to probe into it a bit further.
Well, that's something that obviously it's a good thing we're talking about it, this myopia epidemic. But a lot of people think that you can only be diagnosed as a child. So can you talk a bit more about, you know, short-sightedness developing in an adult? Because most people believe that once you have an eye problem, as an adult, it's more likely to be long-sighted, the opposite form. So how does this short-sightedness develop and how will a person pick it up?
Right, okay, so for example, I'll classify university students as being adults. Some people develop myopia when they're in university or even until their late 20s or even sometimes when they're 30. You know, it's more common when you get to 40 that, as you said, you have other conditions. But in early adulthood, some people actually get more short-sighted. And it's also to do with the theory about being not getting enough outdoor exposure. I don't want to become too technical, but there are some hormones or chemicals, neurotransmitters that get stimulated when you're outdoors, dopamine being one of them. And that dopamine, what it does, it prevents the eye getting longer, the elongation of the eye. So physically, if the eye gets longer, then the images no longer get focused on the retina. They now get focused in front of the retina. That's myopia. So these sort of things, when you go to the chemical level, are things that could also make people prone to getting myopia later on in life.
Now, you talked about children not being diagnosed on time. Are we testing enough in our own environment? Because it's when you go for screening, you're picking them up. Do parents know when they should take their children for eye tests? Or is it, as you said, only when they have a problem, say, I can't see this, I can't see the thing, or they start having poor grades, that's the time that it gets diagnosed?
So your first question, are we testing enough? The answer is a capital no. And a lot of it is because people, when they go for tests, they see that they exchange money for a test. So they're actually paying something out of their pocket. So that's a deterrent to a lot of people. But in societies whereby you are given the tests or you're offered the test free of charge, i.e. before you start school or before you go to a different school level, i.e. maybe from nursery to primary or from primary to secondary or from secondary to university, you have free tests. But in Nigeria, we end up having to pay for tests virtually all the time. So people are not keen to go and spend that money. So if we could get it out there that, you know, it's, even though you may need to spend money, it's really, really important to know the state of the eye health.
And the children, what are the implications if a child going through school doesn't get diagnosed on time and doesn't get their glasses?
Okay, number one, poor grades. The child is in school, is short-sighted, can see what's in front. He or she looks up at the board and can't see what's written on the board. And then, I mean, obviously starts making mistakes, starts losing confidence, which is a very key thing. And it's like nobody thinks about it, that maybe he or she didn't see what the board when things were being explained, or see what was written on the board. So you start having nicknames like Olodo and things like that. And the child gets more and more, or loses confidence more and more. And you find that these sort of things happen. I mean, sometimes the most touching aspect of going for screening is you give a child a pair of glasses and he or she screams that, I can see. You know, so a lot of times the education suffers because they don't get tested or they don't get diagnosed and they don't get the proper help they need. And the proper help they need might just be a pair of glasses.
And it sounds so simple. It sounds something that should not be an issue, but it's a terrible, terrible indictment on the society that so many people are suffering without it. Thank you very much. You find out you had short sight, and how has it been resolved?
Okay, so I wasn't the one that found that I was short-sighted. Let's say in my primary 2, basic 2, and what I could say is I never loved classwork where I have to write at the see something from the board while seated at my seat. I always dreaded when the teachers have something on the board and ask for me. Prefer when the teachers want to dictate, you know, they say, oh, we're going to dictate the notes. I'm always very happy because I don't have to wait to copy from my friend. So, but then my mom found out that my classwork, you know, the books are ruled, but usually my lines, I write and it's slanted, okay, but to me, it looks straight, but she'll be like, why are you writing slanted? I said, I don't know, it looks straight in my eyes, okay? So she said, okay, there is a problem. And I always bring things very close to my face that my friends will always laugh. Do you want to fall into the book? Do you want to fall into the picture? You know, always bring things very close. My world was so low beyond my hands, you know, so things are very close to me and I love it that way. So being a small child, I felt that's how my vision is meant to be. So I continued that way till my mom took me to an eye clinic. So that's why they found out that for myopia, but unfortunately, I wasn't just a myope. So wearing glasses as a small child was not so hard for me. It wasn't making my vision any better. Well, it was better than nothing, but I wasn't comfortable all the same.
Thank you, Dr. Oyeleye, for you've heard those two testimonies, and both of them have been treated with glasses. Are there any other alternatives for treating short-sightedness?
Okay, good. Treating short-sightedness and treating short-sightedness in children are different things. So let me just first of all start about treating short-sightedness. The first thing is glasses, okay? You do an eye test and you get the correct prescription and you offer the individual glasses. For some people, they'd rather not wear glasses and they'd rather have contact lenses. People who definitely could be, if you're a sportsman with an outdoor life, so to speak, you'd rather have contact lenses rather than glasses, so that when you run around or do things, they don't fall off. There's some people who prefer contact lenses for cosmetic reasons, or they just don't like the feel of glasses on their eyes. So apart from glasses, contact lenses are other options. Now, there's also what we call the surgical option and the laser option. A lot of people recently have had laser treatment for short-sightedness. Essentially, what you do then is there's certain laser machines which will reshape the cornea so that it bends light differently. The cornea is the front part of the eye, which is transparent. And what the cornea does, it actually bends the light as it gets into the eye. And then the lens continues that process. And things are focused on the retina. Like it does, is to reshape the cornea so that light rays end up on the retina, reducing the short-sightedness. So that's one. And then obviously there's surgery, which is going out of, which is actually going out of
altogether now, yes, because of the laser being a much cleaner.
Treating myopia in children, we could use some eye drops, which we find out help to prevent the progression of myopia in children, and some certain types of formulated contact lenses, which help as well.
Time is fast spent. Do you have any last words for our listeners?
Right. What I'd advise parents or guardians to do is to get their children or take their children for eye tests. Usually the first eye test we have in the world is when we are born, when the midwife looks at the eyes and makes sure things appear to be okay. But further on, at every key stage of education, take your child for an eye test, even nursery, when he starts in primary school, when he or she starts in secondary school, and when he or she starts university, should be enough school for an eye test. And then adults, you carry on that trend.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe for new video updates.